Good morning, America. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy. We're going to focus. So, a lot of news out today, given the what's shaping up around the Trump administration, and some funny stuff too. We're going to talk about Rand Paul's yearly festival list of crazy government expenditures. But we're talking about expenditures. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that will save you money as you facing tax issues. How to get rid of some expenses, what expenses makes sense to pare down, and what will hurt you if you pay certain expenses down. So, and how to do that, how to set that up for you. So this is a common thing that we see happen on a regular basis. People don't know what to pay down, how to prepare for this, and we're going to help guide you through this. So stay with us and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for watching us here at Taxes Made Easy. Again, the topic for today is what expenses are good expenses, which ones aren't. As you're facing an IRS case or state case, how do you prepare and what debts should be paid off? So again, we're going to go through those, and I can just kind of put this into one show to make it easy for everybody. Again, a lot of news. Some of this, we're going to take a little more of a lighthearted approach to today's show. But the first step here is, first article we're going to share is actually from the IRS. Not as fun, but very necessary. So this is all about the BOI reporting for FinCEN. So this is beneficial ownership information, needs to be reported by January 1st. You can use the CPA. There are plenty of companies that are doing this out there. We'll do this. Again, the IRS is coming up with a free webinar. So if you don't know what's happening here, you're not sure, it's a free webinar. You can sign up for it Tuesday, November 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So just go sign up for it. The link is down here, registration link. And you can email questions to them, but I highly recommend, if you are a business owner and you haven't had this taken care of, you can do it yourself, but either check with your CPA or go to this webinar, get informed, and the penalties are fairly steep. It's still the law for most of the country. I know there was a circuit court that struck it down in Alabama. It hasn't reached the Supreme Court, nor do we know what's going to happen with this. Could this get repealed once Trump gets to office? Very possibly, but don't hold your breath for that, because the penalties are nasty. And again, it's not just Trump; it's the Congress, the House, and the Senate have to act too. So I wouldn't trust that the government is going to do the right thing here and get rid of this. In my opinion, I would love to see this gone. However, you can even report this without providing your personal information and putting it out there for the public to know about. So it explains the Corporate Transparency Act, how to provide those resources, and then the reporting requirement for you and what happens if you do not timely report to BOI to FinCEN. Now, this is for companies that have been open for all of 2024, have until November. If you've opened a company in 2024, this is what's going to hurt a lot of people. You had 90 days to do this. 90 days from when your company was registered with the Secretary of State. Now, if you're just running a lemonade stand, you're just doing some business out of your office, no. This is for businesses set up as organized as corporations. You've created an LLC, etc., and that's what they're really looking for here. So again, it's going to be important to get informed, make sure you comply with this law. After January 1st, you will only have 30 days from when you start a new business to comply with this law. So again, 30 days is not much time. So again, trying to get the information out there. There's going to be a lot of business owners and new business owners, entrepreneurs just starting businesses that are not going to understand this, not going to know how to comply with this. So be informed, share this with your friends. This is absolutely important. And I believe the fines are $500 a day up to $10,000. And that would add up very quickly at a rate of $500 a day, just 20 days. And then all of a sudden you owe the government $10,000. So get informed, take care. This is important. I like sharing these little nuggets here. Danbury business owner sentenced to 7 months in prison for tax evasion. Now, people ask me all the time, am I going to go to jail because I owe the IRS money? 99 times out of 100, the answer is a clear no. Not even close. And I tell people, unless you do everything wrong, unless you take my advice and do the complete opposite, you're not going anywhere close to jail. The IRS doesn't want to put people in jail. Why? It costs them money. Putting people in jail is really for extreme people. Extreme cases, people that flagrantly violate the law and hide assets and lie to the IRS. So here you have a Danbury business owner. He only owed $140,000 in taxes. We help people that owe that amount of taxes all the time. So the question is, why is he going to prison after for just owing $140,000? And that's probably with penalties and interest. So the real amount is probably closer to $100,000. I mean, people owe $100,000 all the time. So so he was convicted in order to pay $137,000 in restitution to the IRS. It's just a local business, a budget tree and stump removal service, LLC. We have those types of businesses all over the place. Excuse me. So then you have, he earned between 2016 and 22, $1.4 million, and he concealed it. How did he conceal his income? This is the key here. He actively took steps to lie to the IRS, to hide income, to not report it on his tax returns. So he received customer payments through checks that he put into accounts other than his business bank account, and they were made payable as cash or to him personally. So again, he's actively setting up a situation where he is avoiding paying the money to the IRS. He is avoiding accountability because when they audit his accounts, there's nothing in the business accounts. But yet they see all this money flowing through his personal accounts. When they dig deep enough, they absolutely will do this. So, and he would cash checks from customers and not deposit the money to any accounts. So, Bill Macros, 58 years old, is getting hammered here, and he deserves it. So he also applied for and received $31,200 in pandemic, probably PPP loans, and he submitted IRS Schedule C forms for this, and then he never filed the returns to back that up. So again, just the egregiousness here. He claimed he was hurting, lied to the IRS in multiple ways, and again, pleaded guilty to tax evasion on July 1st. So he was also convicted back in 2008 for state court and failing to pay sales tax. He's not really learning here. So when people ask me, am I going to go to jail? Am I going to go to prison? There's so many people that are concerned about that. 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. The only case that I had even close to that, I had a client who they were doing all the wrong things. They were ignoring me. We worked on the case for a good 8 months, trying to get them to do the right thing. And it got to the point that they were facing that they were trying to hide information from the IRS, but the IRS knew all about it. But they were refusing to provide documents. They were refusing to work with the IRS, and they were so frustrated that they were getting ready. They'd issue the first summons and then a second summons, which is all bad news. You don't need to know. You shouldn't even get close to that point. I've stepped into cases that were at the someone's level. I've addressed them. I helped them. But if you get to that point, you've been doing things seriously wrong. And they were facing warrants for their arrest. And so that's what I said. Look, the biggest thing I can do to protest and tell you that you're on the wrong and going in the wrong direction is to quit your case. Fire you as a client. And it was funny. They asked me, well, how many cases do you have that get to this point? And I told them none. You're the first. I don't let my cases get to this point. I don't tolerate people. If you're going to hide assets, if you're going to try to lie to the IRS that has more information than me, you're asking for it. It's not worth it. Now, if you have been playing funny games and you want to straighten things out and get straight moving forward, I will absolutely help you all day long. That's my goal, is to help people comply with the tax obligation and laws that are out there, and then help us move forward. So I kind of went on a rant about this, but it is very, very important to do things right, to avoid troubles. Our goal here is to help protect people and help avoid troubles moving forward rather than self-inflicted troubles. And too often when people get into a serious issue like that, it's self-inflicted. So I'm going to jump to the next article. And it just gets me because there's no reason to hurt yourself like that. So you had a new ruling that just came out, and this is from Red State, vaporize 50 years of environmental law. So now the EPA under Trump is going to come in to build on the ashes to kind of rebuild this. What are they talking about here? Well, you've had a couple of very big cases. Chevron deference being smacked down is going to have huge effect here. But here you have the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. So basically one of the highest court of appeals just below the Supreme Court. Struck down 46 years of federal environmental regulations. The majority, so it was a 2-1 decision, majority of 3-judge panel, ruled that the CEQ, Council of Environmental Quality, so a special board inside the executive office, they have been acted to, their whole goal is to make sure that requirements and complying with the National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA, are interpreted uniformly across federal government. And they're saying that they illegally use the Federal Register to publish guidance that made it sound like they had the authority of law when it's just an executive board. So we are coming up on another break, but I really do want to dive into this because it's really shows how the federal government can go overboard. And I'm not even sharing this tab. So we're going to go over this, highlight it when we come back from this next break. Welcome back, everybody, and jumping back to this article on this latest court ruling. So you had the CEQ, Council on Environmental Quality, interpreting the NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, for the entire federal government. And it was ruled that was ultra vires, which means it was acting beyond the legal scope of its authority. It was claiming that its regulations had the force of law and the rest of the federal government had to follow it, which, again, it was never established by Congress, never was given that authority, and so was acting beyond what it was acting with more authority than Congress ever gave it. So, again, this is where you have that fine line. The executive is supposed to enforce the laws, and Congress is supposed to act and determine the laws. However, Congress has been dysfunctional for decades and hasn't really spoken, hasn't really made decisions and passed laws. And so as a result, the executive has taken over, passed all kinds of laws and regulations that have been pretty much enforced with the force of law. And so we're going to see how this comes out. And again, you can have, it just said that the way they've been doing it for the last 40 plus years is incorrect. And again, it just throws the entire environmental regulation scheme by the federal government into chaos. So many of these, the same regulations that CEQ pushed and demanded that people follow, will probably be reissued by other agencies. But again, I mentioned the Chevron difference in Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. Again, the Supreme Court said the administrative state, you don't have to defer to any kind of a bureaucrat. If Congress speaks, then they get deference. But if some regulatory agency speaks and claims to have the force of law, they don't get full deference from the courts. That it's actually the courts, their job is to decide whether or not these were made reasonably or not. So again, and then here you have Trump's new pick, Lee Zeldin, coming in, and they're going to get the first crack at reworking what they call useless and expensive regulations. We'll get into that more, but we are burning time, so we still have a lot to cover today. So a couple things, people, a lot of the news is about what is the Trump administration going to look, how are they going to rework different departments, and a big one here is the Pentagon. So this is interesting how they do it, and it's going to be interesting, kind of an idea of how they're going to work things moving forward. So he's already sending signals to the military brass. They're next on the chopping block. So they're saying it might have a chilling effect on due to the officer corps. But again, you have a mandate. The voters, he had huge support here, and his goal is to create a warrior board of retired generals and other senior personnel to review the leadership qualities of current officers in questions, going up to 3- and 4-star generals and admirals. So there's a lot of frustration in the military. There's a lot of people, recruiting is down. They can't meet their quotas. And part of it is the people they're recruiting for just aren't healthy enough. That's a big problem for this generation, where we're going to a more and more obese society with time. But the other part is that the sectors of society that can traditionally join are turned away by an increasingly woke military. And, a lot of people would argue that affects our readiness. I'm a veteran myself. I have my own opinions, but the idea is that this war board of retired senior military would review 3- and 4-star generals and admirals to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership. So this would be a fast track way for the removal of generals and admirals found to be lacking in leadership qualities, and again, fulfill his vow to fire woke generals that are promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness. I mean, it's the military. Their number one goal should be military readiness. And I think too often they focus on politics, just as they fired and went after all kinds of military personnel that wouldn't take the COVID jab. And that's been proven to be a bunch of hogwash. So as commander-in-chief, Trump can fire any officer at will, but to go through and do all that is, for just the Oval Office would be insane. But this outsourced board would bypass the regular promotion system and, again, would really help provide a list of people to let go. So any identified for removal would be retired at the current rank within 30 days. They retire with their full pension, etc. And when they're already a general or admiral or that high up, trust me, they'll be just fine. But it is a way to reshape the military. Again, is this ideal? No. To have high turnover in the military generally is not a great idea, but sometimes it's needed. I mean, you want to have consistency, but every time we've had a massive war, in World War II, all kinds of admirals and generals were retired or skipped over, and the people that were handpicked were people that were seen as more competent, better fighters, and again, um, Patton was skipped over many generals. Same with Eisenhower. Same with a lot of people that really became big news. Bradley, a new officer corps, really was elevated to take over and fight World War II. And you might have a lot that are just likely to retire instead of fighting this new board. Let's see what happens. I'm all for streamlining the military and increasing its efficiency. Talking about increasing its efficiency, this is really where I'm going to focus the rest of it about it. Trump tasks Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm sure I butchered that, to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which again runs off of his cryptocurrency, a Dogecoin. I don't know much about it. And again, this is Elon Musk celebrating. I love where this is going, but at the same time, it can be great and it can be very much abused. So I really do hope the liberal media pays attention to what's going on. I'm sure they will. And we need to be careful here. And so again, whenever you cut expenses from the home government, people are going to scream, complain, but are there things that need to be cut? Absolutely. So they're going to establish the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. And the interesting that they're going to be this, it's only going to exist for 18 months. So when was the last time, and this is one straight from the article, when was the last time a new agency was set to sunset and go away? So their whole goal is to slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies. Trump did this the first time he was elected, but I think it's going to be on steroids this time. It will be potentially the Manhattan Project of our time to really gut government waste and inefficiency. And again, they say annual expenses of 6.5 trillion. I think it was close to 6.9 trillion this last year. Government spending, we're spending 2 trillion more than what we brought in. And again, a smaller government with more efficiency and less bureaucracy will be the perfect gift to the American people for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So this is supposed to sunset on July 4th, 2026, the 250th birthday for the United States. So that's coming up, and I'm sure that will be a huge celebration, not just cutting all the expenses, but for the United States. There's some details in here that I want to focus on. And this article doesn't dive into it too much, but when we jump to the next article, here it's from Twitchy, they really get into what they're planning on doing. And a lot of this is having fun with this, from The Office, I believe, I don't even know this, watch the show, but so with this, part of the goal here, that's the same statement, they're going to be, and I'm kind of skipping down to the part here. The news got better as both men relayed that DOGE would not just be Washington bureaucrats making decisions. It would include input from citizens and post regular updates about progress on Twitter. So this, I think, is the cool part, that all actions will be posted online for maximum transparency so that people will be able to see what's going on and comment about it. So anytime the public thinks we are cutting something important or not cutting something wasteful, just let us know. So I love transparency. I don't think we have nearly enough of it in our government. It's kind of laughable. And so they'll have a leaderboard for the most insanely dumb things. I mean, they were going to have, it will be extremely tragic and extremely entertaining, but people will have a voice. People will be able to respond to this. So there'll be crowdsourcing examples of government waste, fraud, and abuse. And people voted for drastic government reform, and they deserve to be part of fixing it. So I love this idea. Let's see how it works in practice. But they say, wow, just wow, a government agency that actually listens to the people. And so, again, this is just more fun here. They're having a lot of fun with this. But hacking and slashing the federal government. And one of the videos they post, this is Javier Milei, president of Argentina, cutting.
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas.
And it keeps going. Milei, this is him after he first gained power. He was not able to cut all the agencies he wanted to, but he cut a lot of them. And the Department of Education is one that are already talking about cutting. So again, they're going in there with a purpose. Again, we need to, this is, a local, bring out the chainsaws. And again, it goes on. It makes it sound that they're very serious about going in and hacking and slashing the size of the federal government. When he bought Twitter, he slashed 80% of the bloated employee base. Well, it's not perfect. It's much better than it was. And hopefully he does that. Now, legally, there's some legal questions here. If every law, and this is, if a bill passes the House of Representatives, passes the Senate, signed by the president, and then has to be designated efficient by the application of the DOGE stamp by Mr. Musk. That's not correct. Because one, their program is going to sunset. And the question is, they're just going to go right back to the trough when it sunsets. But again, you have to watch out legally how to go through and get rid of these programs. A lot of it's going to take congressional action because a lot of these programs are passed by Congress. So moving on, and this is a little funny / sad. This is the waste of 2023. Festivus. Rand Paul posted this about all the different silly things that government is spending money on. Things that, again, just government was not prepared. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. I'm just going to go through this fairly quickly. People applying to get COVID PPP loans, for photo ID, some of them use Barbie dolls as photos. And these are people obviously fraudsters, gaming the system. And it was so bad, the verification was pretty much non-existent. And that's a portion of the COVID PPP loans, which was $800 billion. And there was tons of fraud, waste, and abuse in there. Same thing with the COVID EIDL loans. And then interest on the debt, $659 billion on that alone. $33 million spent on Dr. Fauci's Monkey Island, experimenting on monkeys. $6 million to boost Egyptian tourism. Why is the United States doing that? USDA is cutting edge research, walking dogs in the summer. I don't even know how much it spent, but again, why are we studying walking dogs in the center? DOGE is training employers to be their best, authentic and best selves. Russian cats on a treadmill studies funded by NIH, $2.7 million. I mean, a lot of these studies, and there's plenty of important people, but again, payments to dead people estimated $38 million, $8,000 for a lobster tank at the Department of Defense. Just military equipment ruined and destroyed, engines, $89 million, $12 million transmissions, $68 million on tank treads, and a graphic novel about disinformation that the DHS paid someone to produce. A second graphic novel on COVID disinformation. Again, NIH's meth head monkey study, pretty much getting monkeys high. Treasury's pot of cash for political campaigns, $400 million. It just keeps going. NIH's monkey casino gambling for drinking water to see if monkeys will gamble. A transgender monkey study, 477,000, and proper federal payments, $236 billion. So it adds up to about $900 billion altogether. And he does this every year where he posts this list. And too often he's like a voice out in the wilderness. Nobody pays attention to him. Hopefully, and looking at what's happening with the studies and what they're trying to cut, this can really make a difference. So it's interesting that here we have a couple articles out, how to save money with the Inflation Reduction Act before Trump gets rid of it. There are articles out there like this. A lot of these programs are going to get cut. How do you take advantage of it now before they get cut? I have solar in my house. I love it. Absolutely love it. The past 2 years, millions of consumers have been able to claim cash back for electric vehicles, heat pumps. Billions of dollars have been funneled toward clean technologies, and that's one of the reasons why we have the huge debt. So that's one of the first things they want to cut is the Inflation Reduction Act, and they've pledged to terminate and get rid of all this cash flowing to clean energy. And ironically, there are already companies failing without the subsidies that are receiving millions and millions in clean energy. But again, this article goes through, we're going to link it. You can go to it. If you're trying to get clean energy, just list out all the different ways you can save money. And like I said, a lot of these credits are very popular if you're making that transition to electric. And you've got a couple months, about 45 days, well, more till the 20th. But in January 2025, they're absolutely right. I would not expect these credits to stick around. So if you're going to make those changes, it would make sense to do it sooner rather than later. We are coming up on another break. And the last article that I want to touch on just too much today, it really is about health insurance. Again, tips for navigating Affordable Care Act open enrollment. This is going to be an issue for another day, but I'm still going to link the article because it can definitely hurt you not to do this right. So we'll be right back in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy. And we're going to switch gears, really hammer in on, again, just got a little excited about the idea of cutting the federal government like crazy. As you can tell by the comments, a lot of people are. But how does this affect you personally when you are dealing with the government, when you are trying to get rid of expenses, when you are trying to deal with most people when they are in trouble with the IRS, their money has gone down, they're struggling, they can't afford to pay taxes because they're trying to just meet the necessary living expenses. So interestingly enough, the way the IRS looks at each category is very different from category to category. So some things you can definitely skip on, save money, and they're not going to hold it against you. Other areas, not so much. So the first area, food, clothing, miscellaneous. They give you this. They just give out a number based on the number of people in the home, and they're just not going to question it. Now, most states follow that same number. Not all of them do. Some of them you have to lay it out. Illinois is an exception to that. They actually wanted you to lay it out. But New York, California, most other states, so if you just tell me you're using the IRS standards, they'll leave it alone. And they won't question it too much as to what you're actually requesting. Now, when it comes to housing and utilities, this is an interesting thing. the IRS numbers are woefully low. It's very tragic what this administration has done in not allowing for what people are actually spending. For example, if for the average individual in Arizona, Pima County, Arizona, they're allowing for $1,680 for rent, utilities, phone, cable, internet, property taxes, homeowners insurance. You can't go get an apartment unless you're getting a one-room apartment and sharing a home for 3 or 4 people. You can't get anything for less than $1,200. Probably $1,400 is more accurate. That doesn't leave any room for utilities, for home phone, cell phone, any kind of entertainment, which you're allowed to have. It's part of the standard. So most people spend $500 to $1,000 more. So if you're trying to cut expenses within reason, trying to cut some of your expenses in the home usually is a good idea. But if you sit down and talk to us, we can tell you exactly how much you can cut out of expending, what you're spending on your home, or if you're going to move into a cheaper place. The problem is moving has its own expenses, and most of the time when you move, you're paying the higher rent, or if you're downgrading home, you might save more. But again, it's just really tough to find something that's more affordable with today's market. So that's one big area that we see people hurt is because the IRS doesn't allow for the full expenses. So whatever expenses you can cut out of housing, utilities, within reason, can definitely help save you a lot of money and qualify for better resolutions. And sometimes the IRS says, look, you have all this extra money. It's going to a mortgage. It's going to a high rent that they're not going to give you credit for. We are very hopeful, though, that will change. The rule, there was a 150% rule in place for multiple administrations prior to the Biden administration, where they knew that the allowables were too low in many instances, and so they allowed for 150% of the allowable number. We're very hopeful that will get reinstated, but we'll have to see. Vehicles. A lot of people will pay off a vehicle, say, look, I want to get rid of this payment and be free of it, and it frees up a lot of cash to pay off a vehicle. The problem with paying off a vehicle is it's one of the areas that the IRS does give full credit for payments, up to $619 right now, and that will change next May. So if you get rid of a car payment, you're getting rid of one of the bigger expenses that the average person has and that the IRS allows for. So they'll allow for a lease payment. They'll allow for your normal car payment. There are times that we have people that, they just need another payment. They can go get it. Go to a credit union, never go to one of these title loan agencies. They're rapacious, the interest is insane. But if you go to a credit union and take out a reasonable loan out on, a title loan out on your vehicle, you can get rid of the equity in your vehicle and have a car payment that will help you qualify for a better offer and compromise. And that's where we would typically do it, for an offer and compromise. And it's one of those things that we will 100% share, and we will share exactly what we're doing with the IRS. They might not like it. It might sound a little shady, but it qualifies within their rules and regulations, and they will accept it. I haven't had them deny that once. Now, this is kind of getting into the numbers, and these are different ideas for how you can move your finances around to qualify for a better situation. But one of the caveats to be aware of is if you're doing an offer and compromise, you might want to make sure that you buy a used vehicle. One, they're cheaper overall than going out and buying new. But if you have a car that's 10 years old or has 100,000 miles on it, you get an additional 200,000 for operating expenses for gas and maintenance. And they don't ask questions about it, they just give it to you. So sometimes, buying a vehicle that's older, you get a payment plan that you can afford, can really help you get a better case and have a better argument with the IRS. Sometimes having an older vehicle or a vehicle that's paid in full can create a lot of equity issues that don't necessarily help you. Health insurance. So vision, dental, and just straight up health insurance absolutely is allowed by the IRS. And there's too many people out there that don't have health insurance. There's some people that they're just rolling the dice. They don't think they need it. They don't think they can afford it. The article I skipped over was about, it is open enrollment right now. It's a great time to go and look at how much you would have to pay either through the exchanges, or there are other programs. There are cost sharing programs that you can get involved in. And as long as you're making the payments, you'll get credit for health insurance, vision, dental, all included in that. Now, a hard thing to prove up is prescriptions. Out-of-pocket prescriptions or medical costs. A lot of people don't understand how much that includes. For one person across the country, the IRS gives you $158. No questions asked if you're over 65. If you're under 65, I'll tell you what that is. $83. So again, they're just assuming that people over 65 have more expenses, under 65, not as many, so it's just a standard that they have there. But what if you're spending more than that? This is very true for people that are diabetic, people that need in-home care, people that are going through a lot of health issues. Now, it has to be reasonable. It has to be connected to something being treated by a doctor, or it has to be diagnosed. But if it's directly connected to your health, you can get credit for a lot. So, for example, chiropractic care, massage care, if you're getting therapy that's for mental health, or physical therapy, ongoing physical therapy from an accident or ongoing chronic issue, you can get credit for all of those expenses. Now, going to a spa, a different thing. If you just like to get massages, but you don't have any physical ailment, you don't have back issues, you weren't injured or anything like that, that's harder to argue for. But there's a lot of things connected to health. And one of the things that, as far as the national standards for food and stuff, if you have allergies, food allergies, and you can't buy normal food, you can argue for a much higher food cost or food allowance, but it has to be documented. It's not that you just don't want to eat gluten, but if you go and you get proven that you have a gluten allergy or intolerance or dairy intolerance or whatever your diet needs, then you can get more credit for more expenses, even to go purchase more expensive food to meet your dietary needs. But again, it has to be doctor ordered. Going and getting vitamins, if it's doctor ordered, you can buy vitamins and get credit for it. But if you just go to a health store and buy lots of vitamins and natural remedies, unless it's doctor ordered, you're not going to get credit for it. One of the biggest adjustments we make and help people make when people come in is making sure they're paying enough in taxes. So again, it's such a common thing that people come in, and I'm hearing it all the time. I'm going to owe for 2024, especially at this time of year. People know if they paid in enough, or they just don't have a clue. And a lot of people think, yeah, I'm going to owe taxes. Now that's for the current year. Now, if you owe for the current year, you have to include that in any kind of resolution. So ironically, I had one case where a lady paid off her taxes, about $11,000. She had the money saved up, and she paid it at the end of the year. So it was like $11,000. So you would think she would get credit for just under $1,000 a month. The IRS didn't care. It's like, well, thank you very much for paying your taxes at the end of the year, but you're supposed to pay it throughout the year in estimated tax payments. In previous years, they had a very small penalty. In 2022, it had gone up to, with all the inflation, up to 3%. But for 2024, Congress, in a bipartisan manner, jacked it up to 8%. So you have to pay quarterly throughout the year, or one, they won't give you credit for it on your monthly expenses, and you have to pay it eventually anyway. And two, they won't give you a resolution in most cases, because if they see that you haven't paid all year, they're like, okay, well, it's just going to be a problem again. Why are we going to give you a deal when we know it's going to be a problem again. You have to have some kind of plan in place and ideally show that you're making regular payments, but you get full credit for those as an expense. So state, local, federal taxes, all of that you get credit for. And if you're behind on property taxes, you can get credit for that as well. So if you're behind on state or local taxes, property taxes, even sales taxes, if you have any kinds of installment agreements for that, and you're going to trying to get caught up on other debts, you need to be paying those, and this can all help you qualify for a better resolution for the IRS. So it's making sure the IRS is more interested that you're not going to have problems moving forward. They want you to be a good little taxpayer, toe the line, and they will work with you on the past due taxes. That is the general principle from the IRS. Some of the other things, court order payments. Believe it or not, it actually is in your benefit if you're paying child support to have a court order. I can't tell you how many times someone was giving money for a baby that they had. They weren't living with the mother, and they're just supporting them. If it's not court ordered, you're not going to get any credit for it. So it's fairly easy to go and just get a court order put in place, and then the IRS will give you 100% credit for it. Child dependent care. If you're paying someone, and it can even be a family member, it can even be a mom in the house or a grandparent that's not even in the house. But if you drop them off for regular child care, all you have to do is document how much you're paying them, make it regular, pay them by check, something that's easy to trace, and draft up a simple agreement. That's one area that a lot of people miss, that expense of child care. And sometimes they have a family member that they're not even paying. They can pay them. They can start paying them. Just have to document it. The IRS will give you full credit for it. Life insurance and other kind of disability insurance is a great way to provide a necessary protection for you and your family. But you have to be very careful here. So the IRS treats whole life insurance very differently from term life insurance. So term means there's no cash value. No frills, no bells, no whistles. If someone starts telling you about variable life, whole life, prudential life, they have a dozen different names for it. But if there's any kind of cash value component, where if you live, you get some money, the IRS treats it as a bad investment, and they're not going to give you credit for the monthly payments on it. They just treat it as a very expensive, bad investment. Term life insurance, so group life through your work is the best, but also term life insurance where it's just for a period of time. If you die in this period of time, you win. You get your family gets paid. If you survive, you don't win. But hopefully, the idea is during that time period, you build up enough of a estate where you don't have to worry about what's going to happen with your family. So, term life insurance, accidental death and disability, short-term, long-term disability, AFLAC, all of those different products that protect you in case you get hurt, or long-term care insurance, especially if someone's approaching, getting older. Those are all valid, necessary. They're seen as prudent planning, and the IRS gives you full credit for all of those. Student loan payments is another one where if you haven't been paying on your student loans, you can set that up or start making those payments, and they'll give you full credit for those. So any kind of payments to the government, they'll give you full credit on those, as long as it's ordered against an official payment. We talked yesterday about things not to pay off. Credit cards, personal loans, loans to family members or friends. It can be a very serious loan, but if there's no collateral, if it's unsecured, they're not going to give you credit for it. So we're running out of time. I just want to focus on and hammer in that if you have these questions, what do I do? What's the first thing you should do? Call and ask. If someone calls and say, how do I do this? We'll go through, tell you exactly where you can save money. How can you tailor your situation for the best results with the IRS? Give us a call, 520-485-7371, or go to guardiantaxlaw.com.